Hello, this is Ed Rigsby, and I'm excited to bring you another conversation with association executives who hire professional speakers. Today, this is very, very cool. We have the American Bankers Association, and we have Lauren Dwyer, who is the is the vice president of executive and CEO programs. And we have Tracy Leah, who's the Director of Executive Education and CEO Programs. If anybody can give us some idea of what's going on at the ABA with speakers, these two surely can. So I want to jump right into it, Lauren, and just to give everybody an idea, I don't know if everybody understands the scope of the American Bankers Association, but could you give me just the quick 411 as far as your approximate size, how you work with the state organization, so forth and so on, and your members, companies, or your members, individuals, that kind of stuff.
Sure, happy to. Thanks for having us, Ed. So ABA is a very large trade association by association standards. We're based in Washington, D.C., and we have upwards of about 350 employees and more than 50 in-person learning opportunities a year. So quite a big educational arm in addition to all of the advocacy and policy work that we do on behalf of banks around the country. And we represent banks of all sizes. So we have member banks that are 3 branches and up into the larger institutions. And we work to advocate for the interests of banks of all sizes around the country and helping to make sure that they can grow the economy and support local businesses in all of your communities.
Very good. Thanks so much, Lauren. I appreciate that. So you pretty much cover the whole spectrum. Okay, everybody, that's important for you to know. Let's, if I may, let's move to Tracy. And so Tracy, what are the plans for your 2021 and 2022 meetings? Which kind of meetings are going to be live? Which kind of meetings are going to be virtual? And do you have any plans for hybrid meetings? Kent, you're on mute. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. So we are planning on returning to live events with a virtual component this fall. Basically a hybrid conference that combines the live in-person experience with the virtual online. For 2022 is here to stay, so we will continue working on that direction.
Very good.
As far as what conferences, Lauren and I work on the annual convention, which is one of our flagship events. So annual and marketing will be this fall, and some of our smaller conferences and meetings, they will continue to be on.
Very good. Let me move to Lauren. So Lauren, let's talk about the number of speaker slots. So you know, maybe you could address as far as you know, maybe the difference between if you do celebrity speakers, which get ginormous amounts of money, if you use paid professional speakers, if you use industry speakers, and you know, how many slots do you think there's going to be for your various events in the coming year to 2 years?
Sure. So, you know, like I said before, ABA has a pretty exorbitant number of in-person events. So unlike some trade associations where they have 1 or 2 large meetings a year, ABA's strategy is that we create content dedicated to each operational vertical or business line within the institution. So Tracy and I manage events that are mostly CEO and executive facing, but we have conferences for wealth management professionals, commercial lenders, risk and compliance, and so on. And so each of those meetings has a different purpose, different attendee needs, different goals. We, across the board, I would say in terms of the types of speakers we hire, it's across the gamut. So a lot of speakers come to us, approach us throughout the year. A lot of them are industry professionals. And so you know, they're not paid for providing their intellectual property to our office, but they work very closely with speakers bureaus. So for annual convention, I'll speak to that. We have about 6 hours of general session content across 2 days and about 30 breakout sessions. So for the general sessions, that's where you see the paid speakers. It is also a celebration, a culmination of everything good that the industry's been doing, and also a celebration and a thank you to our members. So we do often close with a celebrity, a comedian. We have had, Tracy and I were talking about this prior, we hire speakers all the way from a $0 amount, independent speakers who approach us who are in the $7,500 to $15,000 range, and then upwards of, well over 6 figures, sometimes with a full travel buyout, working with security personnel, et cetera. So it's kind of across the board. As we're procuring the speakers, we are the eyes and ears in the industry. So we're approached, constantly monitoring trade press, looking throughout the year and cataloging good ideas that we think that come in from speakers bureaus or that we found on our own, and kind of looking at us as the funnel, and we narrow down those ideas as the year goes on, collaborate with banker boards, advisory boards, and get a lot of input from internal subject matter experts. And it's often a chessboard. We have a budget and we may have 2 speakers that are under $10,000 and then 1 speaker that's $250,000, or you may have a year where you have 5 $30,000 speakers. So we're just looking to, holistically create the most relevant and compelling agenda with the budget money that we have. And it's often a matter of, keeping lots of ideas in the thought pool, and putting together the chessboard or the Rubik's Cube of those ideas within the budget limitations that we have.
Quick, before I go to Tracy with the next question, what are your thoughts as far as paying speakers for a live performance versus a virtual performance? Are you thinking they should be paid the same? Are you thinking they should be paid the difference? Could you tell me what your thoughts are on that?
Sure. I mean, we've basically been reacting to that. Early in the pandemic, I think everyone was being reactive. We didn't know that all of our events were going to be canceled as of late March of last year. And I think that the professional speakers were being reactive as well. We were approached by a lot of speakers who were very well prepared, had virtual packages, had home studios, had been doing virtual events already. And then we, were looking at speakers who had only ever done in-person events. From a financial standpoint, we also were reactive to what the industry norm was. And we saw, which was an opportunity, we saw a lot of availability of speakers in a virtual environment that we would not have been able to afford for certain meetings with certain budgets in an in-person environment. So we were able to take advantage of that for some of our events that had to go virtual in 2020. What I have seen based on my experience is that most virtual fees are less than half of their in-person fees. And then of course you also don't have travel and security, and in some cases, a buyout that includes private jet. And, so your travel line is also decreased significantly, in addition to either being able to save money and procure an equal level of quality speakers than what you've always had, or in other cases, spend the same, but get bigger names that you were able to do in a live environment, which is exciting. And we're looking at as an opportunity. We're also considering when we go live, bringing in 1 or 2. I wouldn't want for a live attendees experience to be mostly virtual as they're sitting in a ballroom again, but we are looking at the possibility of streaming speakers that because of their schedules or because of their price point in a live environment, we may stream people into the ballroom even in a live environment.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting, fascinating. Huh. So, Tracy, can we drill down just a little bit deeper? So, what are you going to pay in 2021 and 2022 for breakout or concurrent sessions? Maybe you could break it apart. what you think you might be paying if it's virtual, what you think you might be paying if it's live.
Okay, that's an easy one. We don't typically pay for our concurrent session speakers. We have 16 slots, and very limited times we will provide one night's hotel and a coach airfare. But in general, we don't typically pay for the keynote session. I'm sorry, for the concurrent sessions.
Okay. And for the, thank you. And for the general session or the keynote. So let's talk about keynote or general session. What are your thoughts as far as actual numbers, or if you're uncomfortable with actual numbers, maybe range for
Sure.
2021 and possibly 2022? What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, like Lauren mentioned, we work on our flagship event, which is the annual convention. So our budget is a little bit more robust than others. But as she mentioned, we have over 50 conferences that we put on. And really, it can range from $0, $1,000 up to 6 figures. So not to get specific, but we really have a broad range that we can do, especially with this flagship event.
And
I can add to that, Ed, some of these other events that I've worked on have very unique relationships with some of our sponsoring companies. So some of the industry providers who sponsor these events do user conferences of their own. And so they have professional speakers and trainers that are on retainer at times with some of these organizations, and they are able to sponsor that and provide that speaker to us, in exchange for just travel reimbursement and sponsorship visibility. So each of the events, it is done a little bit differently. They, in some instances, for certain business lines in the industry, you have a lot of subject matter experts that come from government agencies, like our Risk and Compliance Conference and our fraud events. You have a lot of government speakers that are experts that come from government agencies. So each one is a little bit unique. I will say that most of our conferences often will start out with something that is in the soft skills or a kickoff keynote speaker and end with something that is not necessarily heavy, meaty industry content, because banking content can be very heavy. So we often start out with something as a bookend that's a bit lighter, a leadership address, a soft skills, and then end with something that's a little bit lighter, fun, entertainment, that kind of thing, with all of the heavy regulatory and policy discussion kind of wedged in between.
great, thank you. Tracy, I'm going to throw in a question that I don't even think that I told you I was going to throw in. So what are your thoughts? What are you seeing, Tracy, right now with as far as your interaction with members and what you're hearing as far as, some of the topics, Lauren was talking about going, maybe bring in something that's fun and entertaining, but besides naturally, I mean, I'm sure all of the hard topics, the regulatory and everything that's going on with the government, I'm sure that's absolutely number one on their mind. But as far as in the area of softer topics or management type topics, have you noticed a difference at all in what you're hearing, maybe that the members are looking for? Has it changed since the pandemic hit?
I don't think it has changed so much. We do a lot on leadership. We do diversity, equity, and inclusion plays a big role in that. It falls under that umbrella. Talent management, that's come to the forefront some. So I don't see that it has really changed so much, but it's just bringing different things to the forefront a little more. And if Lauren wants to elaborate on that.
Has there been any, Tracy, have you seen any kind of an increased interest in like softer skills, things like life balance, staying sane, all the kinds of things that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And have you been, and are those the types of topics that you might hire a speaker for, or you might get a comp speaker from a vendor?
Actually, we just before this conversation spoke to someone, so that mental health and wellness
Mhm.
is a big issue right now.
Mhm.
We do plan to try to incorporate that into all areas of the conference. We free is always.
Well, Lauren, we have a little bit of a
Froze up.
freeze.
Sure, no, I can finish. Tracy and I work very closely on this. So we do a guest program at the annual convention, but within all of our conferences, we have done a health and wellness programming of some sort.
Oh,
It may be a sponsored massage studio in the exhibit hall. In a virtual environment, we actually had at our Emerging Leaders event that we had this past month, late April, we had a professional wellness and fitness instructor pre-record small breaks that were available on the event platform, either during the live event or on demand as people wanted to access them. And she did just 3 to 5 minute segments on breathing, chair yoga, short exercises that you can do while you're stuck at your desk all day on Zoom. And we pre-recorded those with a wellness instructor. We have done cooking demos that we had in an experience part of the event platform where we had a professional chef sent out as part of our welcome package recipe cards that were themed around the cities where our live events will hopefully be next year. And then he did cooking demos that were pre-recorded and on the event platform. So we have tried to get creative, knowing that people need a break, whether it's on that day while the virtual event is happening, but also provided it as, you know, a resource that they can access on demand for 30 to 60 days after the event is over. So, you know, that is something that we've incorporated. Crisis management, managing in challenging times are some other topics that have come about. I agree with Tracy. I don't know that they are fully new, but I think being approached in a different way, as is succession planning and talent management, you know, because of the pandemic and everyone's work life environment and balance changing so drastically.
Sure. No, absolutely. Thank you. So, Tracy, let me just ask you about speaker bureaus. You know, what is in your experience, you know, how frequently do you use a speaker bureau to find your speakers? How frequently do you use recommendations from people in the industry or maybe people that you've seen at a conference? Can you address that?
Sure, we do that very frequently, actually. We also monitor trade press throughout the year, and we continually categorize ideas, and then we go back and analyze them with our industry experts. And sometimes the speaker bureaus will actually put on a showcase where they
Got another freeze.
promoting some certain speakers, and we try to attend those, especially for the general session speakers. I apologize to the audience. I'm having issues today, so I guess I will turn it back to Lauren.
Not a problem. Yeah, it's I think during this time, I mean, between internet problems, between our family, you know, using internet, our kids still on school, our spouse doing gaming or whatever. I mean, there's only so much data that can go through that pipe, and I know it's a heck of a challenge. Thank you, Lauren. Let me get to you. So, why don't you walk me through just real quick? What's your process for selecting speakers from a committee saying we're looking for ABC, or however you do it? Then, you know, how you go through that process.
Sure. So for some of our events, we have banker advisory boards. So we have 12 to 14 volunteer bankers who sit on an advisory board and help us throughout the year at times with weekly calls, helping us develop content, procure speakers, speaking on the panels themselves, There are eyes and ears in the industry. When we were in an in-person environment, we would bring them to our offices, even at ABA, and have sometimes 2 full-day meetings to frankly pick their brains and sit there and sponge all of their expertise. In addition to that, we have a community bankers and several councils within the ABA of volunteer bankers that we tap for guidance and insight. Tracy and I are constantly monitoring trade press as well as ABA's internal communications, our communications that go to bankers about all of our policy and advocacy issues. We have a formal call for proposals where we once a year obtain speaking proposals from our service members, sponsors, exhibitors, vendors, and providers. And then we take those proposals as a team, analyze them, choose our favorites, prioritize them. And then Tracy and I collaborate with ABA's policy and subject matter experts. So ABA has a very, very deep bench of industry experts on every issue that you can imagine in banking. I mean, we have people who their entire careers have been spent learning about one particular facet of our industry. So Tracy and I will liaison with internal experts, and sometimes starting with a proposal, reshaping it, adding bankers to collaborate with a provider, adding internal subject matter experts to sit on panels. So it's a very organic process. We look at different industry trends and surveys and reports that come out. And then for the general session speakers, that is done in collaboration with our whole executive team. So I, throughout the entire year, from speakers bureaus, from ideas that I've seen, it may have been a documentary that I saw, I collect and categorize all of those ideas throughout the year. And then in the spring, for the fall meeting, in the spring, start having meetings with our executive team. And that's where the interest stories and the entertainers and the paid speakers, and I'm floating all of those ideas with them. And then at the same time, developing the industry content with them. So, we have 6 hours in front of 1,500 CEOs in the fall. And I'm basically, this particular meeting is more an exercise in prioritizing and gatekeeping because we have way more ideas than what we have time for. And so it's a matter of figuring out at the right time, what is the most hot button and pressing industry issue. And then also creating an experience because, we theme our events around the city where we are. There are a lot of ancillary events that are happening. There's a lot of entertainment that goes on at receptions, and we're building Space Needles and doing when we're in Seattle and doing a lot of fun things as well. And we want to also, a lot of those big name speakers who are the ones that we go out with in our initial marketing launch. And so our bankers have come to expect that our convention is the flagship event. That's where they're going to see the most exciting speakers that are, outside of the industry category, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of prioritizing and gathering and getting consensus and getting buy-in from a lot of opinions. You could throw out a former football player, and in a room full of 10 people, they will not like the idea because it wasn't from his or her team. So mm-hmm. A lot of time getting buy-in from a lot of people is part of the challenge, but also part of what makes it fun. And we always end up with a really great result because we have so many ideas exchanged in the process.
Great. Thank you. Tracy, I'm going to ask you a question that might be a little bit out of the purview where you and Lauren work, but hopefully you can answer this. So as I'm listening, here's what I'm hearing, that predominantly the speakers you're hiring for your annual are pretty much at the celebrity level. And so I'm wondering, okay, well, where in your organization, because you two do executive education and executive program. So Tracy, where in your organization, or is there a place in your organization, other silos that do maybe training where they might hire speakers at, that are that $5,000 to $10,000 level? And Tracy, what about your state organizations? I mean, what are you seeing there? Are they bringing in for their state meetings? Are they bringing in maybe speakers that are that, you know, $5, $10, $15,000 level? Could you address that, Tracy?
Absolutely, sure. For the states, we're seeing that they generally have a little bit lower budget, so they are looking at $3,000 to $10,000 range. We're actually partnering with one now on a women's leadership event, and I think probably the highest that we are paying is $7,500.
Mhm.
And across ABA, we do have the training and departments, along with many others, who do use like $2,000 to $10,000. So there are other avenues that do that. With annual convention, we are not all, you know, celebrity orientated. You know, we try to do some, we use a lot of policy in our general sessions, but we generally do try to have one of the big name speakers. And again, with the concurrence, we have 16 of them, you know, which are free, if not at a lower cost. So we do have all options throughout the board.
Gotcha. And let me just follow up on that follow-up question. So without creating a situation where you start to get 3 million phone calls from people who watch this, how do you prefer, you know, an outside speaker trying to get your eye? How do you prefer to be contacted, Tracy? And also, I mean, what are some of the other areas in your organization that speakers should look at trying to contact those departments also? I'm just trying to get an idea for people that maybe aren't at the level that speakers bureaus. My observation is there's a ton of professional speakers out there that are in this $5,000 to $15,000 speaking range, that don't work with bureaus, that, you know, they either market themselves or they have, you know, an in-house marketing. And so just kind of wondering, you know, how you and others in your organization would want to be contacted.
Sure. Well, of course, email is the best way. So we do also, like Lauren mentioned, open up an RFP, a call for proposals, where those individuals can complete all the necessary forms that we would need to explain their session title, the type of session description. But we also, for general session speakers, they generally give us a call, and sometimes, you know, again, we reach out to the speakers bureaus for those types, because the ideas come from the executive staff down. So we really go about that both ways, and there's plenty of opportunity for people at that dollar amount level to contact us through our call for proposals. And our call for proposals goes out to all of our service members. So we do prefer that they are ABA service members. We do give preference to those, but it's a very low cost to join as a service member, and you get a lot of benefits. So there are times that we have to use someone who is not, but that's an exception to the rule generally. And regarding the other conferences, we have so many. We have risk and compliance, we have marketing. So there's a whole gamut of things that we offer that people could fit into those price ranges for.
Okay. And in your organization, what department might that be? Is that education department, or is that, you know?
Sure. There are 10 or 12 content planners that are in a similar role to myself and Tracy. And so we're organized by business line, executive education and CEO programs, and then you have retail, marketing, payments, and lending, and then you have risk and compliance. And so there are 10 or 12 of us in this role. We also share ideas constantly. So, you know, if a speaker reaches out to me, and all of our events are listed on our website, and each of the program managers' contact information is listed on that event under training and events. But if a speaker sends me an idea that And Tracy and I have both been with ABA for a number of years, so we've done some of the events in the past that we no longer do. And so if we see an idea that we think is a good fit for another audience, we share that with the other program manager. When you're contacting us by email, I would say, submitting as much information as possible, because there are times of year when we're inundated. And so if I just get a sentence with an auto signature that says, I'm interested in speaking at your annual conference, we are inundated and I may not necessarily respond to that. But if I get a speaker, and especially in that, $5,000 to $15,000 range, if I get a speaker that contacts me and they have a nice one pager, or they have a link to a couple of videos that they've done in a live or a virtual environment, just providing us as much information as possible in the front. And you may contact us at a certain time of year when, because of the process, our process is a 9 to 12 month process for planning these events. So you may contact us at a certain time of year when we're not at the point where we're considering a speaker of that type, but we're constantly flagging, we have folders for each event. So I am dropping ideas for concurrent sessions and keynotes into a folder that I then go back when the time comes, before I sit down with our executive office to float all of the ideas that I've collected for the entire year. I go back and look at every single one of those emails and pull the best of the best. So you may not have heard back from us or the speaker may not have heard back from us something that is positive if they email us in February, but when the process starts in April or May, we do give every single person consideration. But the more information that can be provided to us up front, the better opportunity or the better likelihood there is that you'll stand out.
Let me, and I'm going to throw this one out. Lauren, either you or Tracy, either of the two of you might want to take this one, whoever's appropriate. Tracy, you mentioned the RFP. I got to tell you, as a professional speaker of over 30 years, and also as an association executive, I just cringe with RFPs because my personal conversation with myself, and I could be wrong on this is like spitting in the wind. This is like wasting my time. And I'm just wondering, truly, for a speaker, because it takes, most of the time when I go to fill out an RFP, it takes a good 45 minutes. It really does. And I ask myself, is this a good 45 minutes to spend, or am I just spitting in the wind? And maybe could either of you address, how much do you really look at RFPs? And it's not as much for your industry people, but for an outside professional speaker trying to get your attention. Help me out here.
Sure. Tracy, do you want me to take that one, or would you like to take it?
Sure.
Okay.
You can go ahead and I'll pipe in if I have
Okay.
anything to add.
So I think that I hear all of your points, Ed, and it is time consuming, and even some of our service members vocalize that as well. What completing an RFP does for you is it guarantees that your proposal is going to be looked at by Tracy, myself, and two of our equivalents that run other programs. Mm-hmm. We sit down and read every single one of them and discuss every one of them and whether they are appropriate for each of the meetings in our department. And we frankly divvy them out in a certain way. To give you an idea, of the 89 or 90 that we received this year, Tracy and I still have upwards of 25 or 26 of them that are still in consideration. Either we're discussing with subject matter experts internally, waiting for other chips to fall into place to decide whether it should be a concurrent or a general session. So that does guarantee that it's looked at. I would give equal weight, however, to sending a program developer like Tracy and myself a well thought out one pager and some video clips. We, at least speaking for our process, we look at every single one of those and catalog the ones that are of interest for our audiences. That said, the reverse of that is we often receive a lot of communications that are frankly not well thought out, and where it's very clear that the speaker doesn't understand the organization or the audience. So doing a little bit of research, almost as though you would, not as though you would for a job interview, but a couple of clicks on the website that a speaker can do to understand the organization, and then go to that page, the web landing page for the particular meeting, and at least read about the audience. It's very clear after doing this for as many years as we've been doing this, those who have put a little bit of work in versus those who are, every 6 months kind of checking in. And the quality, when the quality is there have been many instances where I will go back into, I could share my screen and show you my folders, each event, keynotes, ideas, concurrence, ideas, policy, DE&I, et cetera. And those emails end up there, and they could be 1.5 years, 2 years old. And what, for a reason that has nothing to do with the speaker's ability or topic area, but because of that prioritizing and limited time that we have on the agenda, we may not have gotten to it this year, or it may not have made it through all of those collaborative conversations to get the attention of all of the people that we have to kind of gain buy-in from internally. But 1.5 years later, oftentimes we've hired someone that I may have floated past our executive office 3 times before that hiring happens. So I think just being thorough and providing as much information up front, and I understand it's time consuming, but doing a little bit of research on the audience so that what you do provide is really relevant.
So it would be a good thing if the speaker understood who you were.
Yes, well, and I think ABA is complex in the sense that we have so many meetings also, and our annual convention is different than other organizations' annual convention in that it is not every business line within banking isn't represented there. So it really is a CEO and senior executive conference. So we're a little bit unique in the sense that we just have so many meetings. Yeah,
got it. Tracy, let me go back to something, if I may, that I think you were the first one to mention the one page, and then Lauren mentioned it again. Last weekend, I conducted an association panel, a panel of association executives. We even talked about this for the Los Angeles chapter of the National Speakers Association. And we got into a discussion about the one pager and the video. And Tracy, how valuable in your estimation, and I think Lauren touched on it, is the one page, and would you even consider a speaker that didn't have a video available on the internet? Tracy, what are your thoughts on
that? We always consider everything, but it is preferable to view a video, or at least get some, have a good point of reference for them where we can verify it. A one pager is great. And going back to the RFP process, we do understand that it is a little time consuming, but also we do go through every single one of them when they come in through the process, because logistically they're downloaded into an Excel file, in which we also have tried to make the process a little bit easier, because we take our CFO program, we take our annual convention program, and we take our community bankers program. So our top 3 CEO programs, and you can submit one proposal you can choose which conference you want to submit that proposal to. In the past, you had to go fill out one for each one if you were considering that. So we really do truly use the speaker proposal process. And for professional speakers, the one pager is good, and videos are always helpful, but they are not mandatory.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wow, that's interesting. So you would consider hiring someone. I guess where I'm trying to move into an area of speakers where the folks that are managed by the speaker bureaus, I mean, they give them the guidance, and they're not going to put them up unless they've got everything, every I dotted and every T crossed. And those are usually pretty substantial fees. And I'm looking to try to get a little bit of information for, that mid-range speaker, that $5,000 to $15,000 speaker, or maybe even in some cases, people that are newer that are $2,500 speakers, and trying to understand, where they might fit in your process. They may not.
No,
So-
I think they absolutely do. It's just a matter of, as putting as much information in front of us as you have at your disposal, and, putting it together in as high quality of a way as possible. But, we've definitely hired speakers without a video, receiving, a one pager or session description and bios, or just the website may or may not have a bio listed. And, sometimes it's often it's instinctual part of this selection process. And, the woman that Tracy and I just got off the phone with prior to this call, she does not have video available. We had a great conversation with her, and she's provided a link to recorded podcasts that she's done. But I think that over time, you kind of you acquire a bit of a gut instinct of, in conversation with people, how they're going to be in front of a large group.
Mhm.
And so there are definitely times when we make the decision to go forward with someone even without video.
Gotcha. Thank you. Hey, Tracy, what are your thoughts on speakers being, most speakers came from a live environment. And what are your thoughts on how good, or even if you want to go percentage, live speakers have been able to translate their skills into virtual? Tracy, what are you seeing on that?
We have seen that they actually do a very good job on it. I think sometimes some people are more comfortable behind the screen and others are more comfortable in person. But everyone that we have gone out to has done a good job in front of the computer in the virtual world. And I think going forward, they will even get more comfortable, because like the hybrid unit is here to stay. So we haven't had any issues with that yet. And like Lauren said, in discussions with people, you can kind of tell who's comfortable and who's not. So that's the way we handle that.
Sure. Got it. Thanks. So, Lauren,
Is this another surprise question, Ed?
yeah, kind of.
I'm ready for it.
Now, well, what drives you crazy about speakers? What do speakers do that just drive you crazy? What do speakers do that tick you off? What do speakers do that they're shooting themselves in the foot?
Honestly, not much. Like I said, we have a very long planning process, and it's not done in a vacuum. For some of our meetings, the program person has a lot of autonomy, and you are able, either with yourself and your advisory board, able to make 90% of the decisions about who goes on that stage. Other meetings, there's not a lot of autonomy. So there are times when, and sometimes I feel badly, not even just for individual speakers, but for speakers bureaus that have done an amazing job keeping in touch with us for years and have put forth great ideas, and individual speakers who have done a great job of keeping in touch. Our process is just very complex for certain meetings. And we've described it today in more detail than we may ever have, other than amongst ourselves. But oftentimes the decision that is made has nothing to do with the quality or the ability of the speaker. There are just so many things at play and so many things to prioritize to put on the stage. And if you just imagine all of this intellectual property for an entire year, everything that a CEO of a bank of any size in the country that would be interested in throughout the entire year being thrown at Tracy and I, and we have to decide what gets elevated to that one of those, or of those 6 or 8 slots. It's a difficult process of elimination. So, I try to communicate that, when I'm approached. I would say, to more directly answer your question, I do have one PR firm that contacts me on a very regular basis and has not once stated the name of the conference correctly in her email. So she does not know the name of the conference, and she contacts me every few months. So to add a little humor, that would be that would be my pet peeve. That is a absolutely true example. But for the most part, I did have one very high-priced speaker in my career that will remain unnamed. That was very, very difficult and inappropriate to work with. But I have been very fortunate and have just worked with lovely bureaus and lovely speakers, and have, always received positive feedback from our audiences. And so, we've been fortunate and worked with some really great people, and it's fun to see it all come to fruition.
So Lauren, have you ever had any speaker demand like a bowl of M&Ms with a certain color taken out?
No, I don't. We don't get riders very often. Once in a while, but it's usually realistic. Like, oh, can I make sure to have Diet Coke, not Diet Pepsi? So once in a while we get a request like that. We did have a speaker, a celebrity speaker who came to us not through a bureau, through other industry connections with some foundation work, who was not very pleasant with some of the AV crew backstage in the green room. Was frankly very mean to one of the stage managers who was trying to simply mic her. So that wasn't very pleasant.
Well, we've got that it was a her.
It was a her. It was a her. No, but for the most part, everyone's lovely and really easygoing. And I find also, just kind of like sharing war stories to people that do this kind of thing, is sometimes the most famous people are the most easygoing. And the people that are not necessarily a household name per se, have more demands. We hired Seth Meyers to close our convention when we were in New York a couple of years ago. And he walked over from NBC Studios himself and walked into the green room with his Starbucks cup and put his hand out to Tracy and I and said, "Hi, I'm Seth Meyers," and did his thing and did his photos and was just lovely and left.
Nice.
So, sometimes the people that have been doing this the longest, and they're over the attention, and they just are super nice. Yeah.
Hey, as we get toward the end of this interview, Tracy, I just wanted to ask you, the last question I'm going to ask you is, for people out there that are, newer speakers, mid-level speakers that maybe aren't household names, in addition to, filling out an RFP, what's the best way for them to start to try to build a relationship with you to look at the long game and getting, connected with ABA?
Sure, absolutely. They can make the introduction via email, or they can give us a call. Oftentimes, we will set up a call to speak with them, and we will invite other people from our organization, our team, into the call, so that maybe that everyone could get to know them and perhaps use them in their vertical that Lauren mentioned earlier. So, and as always, we make the introduction, they send us an email, and then at that point later, I can share with them the process so that they can see the different components of what we're looking for and what will help them be seen in the future more easily.
Great, thank you very much. And Lauren, I'm going to give you the last word. Before we close this up, the last word. What would you like to say to the world of professional speakers? You get the last word.
Oh, sure. Just that we love this industry and love creating intellectual property and collaborating with different people and learning about different people and their stories. And yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to us. Be patient with us. We described our process. You may not necessarily get an invite for this October, but we do consider every opportunity that comes our way. And be happy to hear from you.
Great, thank you. And everybody watching, special thanks to Lauren Dwyer. She is the Vice President of Executive and CEO Programs, and Tracy Leva, who is the Director of Executive Education and CEO Programs at the American Bankers Association. To both of you, thank you so much. I appreciate you, your willingness to participate and share your knowledge with the world of speakers.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.